Hi everyone, this is Ali Hussein Kasim of AliTalksTech. Today's weekly roundup of tech news around Africa is focused on 4 key stories. The first one is happening in Kenya. In the last couple of days, Kenya's tech ecosystem has been abuzz with our impending or a proposed Robotics and Artificial Intelligence Society bill that is supposed to go to Parliament, to Kenya's Parliament, to be enacted into law. We'll come back to that. The second story is happening in India, which some of these stories may not be happening in Africa, but have an impact, our potential influence into the African tech scene. This particular story is happening in India, where our industry association, a fintech industry association, is partnering with Google to pull down online lending apps that are offensive. We'll come back to that. The third one is ABSA, Kenya's CEO, Abdi Mohammed, shaking up his C-suite. And the last and fourth story that I'm following up is one that is happening in the UK. Monzo, one of the more successful digital banks in the UK, is potentially raising around £300 million in new funding. So let's get back to our first story. The Kenya Robotics and Artificial Intelligence Society Act or bill. So there are certain Kenyans who have felt that we need a society around robotics and artificial intelligence. And they have put together a bill that is being prepared for Parliament. Now, I have a couple of questions which I've noted down. Number one, I really debated with myself about whether to share this particular story, because when I read this bill, I was a bit confused, to be honest with you. And my confusion was really about the content more than about the principle of the bill itself. It seemed like somebody took a bill that was focused around the cotton industry and repurposed it for the Robotics and Artificial Intelligence Society bill. So really my question is, as we love to say in Kenya, you had one job to find and replace, and you couldn't do that. Now, these same individuals are telling us they can potentially sponsor a robotics and artificial intelligence bill. On a light note, maybe we should ask ChatGPT about this. But back to serious issues. Do we really need a robotics and AI society embedded in law in Parliament? I mean, ladies and gentlemen of the bill, if you want a society, why don't you just go and register a society? Nobody's stopping you. The Kenyan Constitution is very specific around allowing people independence to associate, to create, to put together bills, to form companies, and so on and so forth. Why do we need Parliament's imprimatur for this? The other question for me is, who are these guys behind this bill? Have they consulted widely? Have they engaged the ecosystem across? My other third question is, should we focus our attention on actually building a robotics and AI industry before we even start thinking about engaging lawmakers on this matter? Or can the two go in tandem? The fourth question is, what are the countries that are ahead in artificial intelligence and robotics doing around this bringing together of AI and robotics professionals? Have they formed a society? Have they gone to their parliaments or Congress or law-making bodies to get permission to put together this society? It's worth looking into some of these case studies. The fifth and last question that I have, don't we even get me started on the typos and the issues that I have raised? Somebody took a document that is focused on the agricultural society, the industry, and plonked a robotics and AI bill on it. I think even if we need such a society, I think a little bit more work needs to go into such a document. My other story is happening in India, where Google and the FinTech Association for Consumer Empowerment, concerned about consumer protection, have decided to come together to protect consumers against bad behavior of digital lenders. Now, we have seen in Kenya and in other parts of Africa like Nigeria, where digital credit providers are now being licensed. Now, I'm not against regulation. I'm not against making sure that players in an industry play straight, protect consumers, and do good by the industry. My billion-dollar question is, should those societies or should regulators partner with a big tech organization like Google? Let me explain to you why this is a big concern for me. Number one, big tech is known for bad behavior. I don't think we need to even argue around that. They're known for bad behavior around consumer protection, around using people's data, and so on, without consent, and so on and so forth. That's one. Two, Google itself is a player in the fintech space. There's even a word for it. They are called tech fins. Your normal fintechs are called fintechs. But the big tech companies that are getting into the fintech ecosystem are now called tech fins. Can we trust a player to also be an arbiter in the same industry? That's food for thought. My third question is, ABSA CEO, Abdi Mohammed, has announced a shake-up C-level changes 6 months after taking the helm of this Tier 1 bank in Kenya. For me, what has interested me most about this announcement is the bank has introduced the role of a chief operating and digital officer as it looks to reposition itself to be a digitally led financial services institution. What's interesting for me is I believe I can be corrected. You guys, if you feel that I have made the wrong observation around this, please feel free to tag me on your comments when you're commenting or watching this weekly roundup. This is probably the first financial services player at that level, Tier 1, to announce the combination of operations and digital into one position, Chief Operating and Digital Officer. What would this mean for this interesting bank that also has a very interesting fintech embedded in the bank called Timiza? I guess time will tell. You have all our support, Abdi. You go for it. The fourth story is about Monzo. Monzo is a digital bank based in the UK. They've just announced that they are going through discussions with potential investors for them to invest £300 million into the company. This is interesting in a number of ways. Number one, Monzo is one of the more successful digital banks in Europe with 8.5 million consumers. So the fact that they are looking for more funding and without a reduction in their valuation is interesting, because at this time we are in the throes of a major meltdown in funding for not just fintechs, but tech startups across the world. Now, this fintech is raising money without a reduction in valuation. Are we seeing the first sparks of a revival of the industry in terms of funding, in terms of how tech startups are doing across the world? I guess time will tell. We'll be following this story in the coming months to see how that goes. Ladies and gentlemen, with that, I would like to sign off in today's weekly roundup of news, of tech news across Africa. Thank you very much.